So I think the key thing that people misunderstand is the difference between building a prototype and going to production. It's very easy to build a chatbot or something that can introduce some value, but then to get it to production, there are a lot of very big challenges. Like it can hallucinate, it can violate, security, it can misbehave, it cannot have the accurate data, it can provide inaccurate answers. What do you do when you need to upgrade it live? There are many operational aspects that people overlook. They build a nice prototype, and then it gets stuck. And then when they try to productize it, they throw everything away and rebuild it from scratch. So if you really want to get things to production, you need to think from the beginning about the production, about the final goal, which is generating business value, for your application.
You've said that most companies aren't set up to succeed in AI from the start. What do you think is the biggest data challenge holding them back?
So it's not just data. It's about creating a platform on which you can build those applications, those AI applications. And part of that platform is access to data, because AI is useless without the data. It's not just a model. Someone asks a question, you take the model in order to help you take the data and create an answer, textual or voice answer based on the data.
Right.
So you get a question or an action, and that interface is an external service that does something. Schedule an appointment, goes and inserts an appointment into some other system. So you need to create a platform on which you can build those applications, and you can also productize them. Again, you be able to test them, be able to monitor if they're actually behaving or misbehaving, be able to launch a new version when you need to, be able to integrate easily with your data assets within the organization.
What does successful data infrastructure look like, and how far off are most companies from building it that you tend to work with?
So I think a part of the challenge is that data is still siloed in many organizations.
Right.
I went to a CTO of a bank, and we showed him a very nice application of essentially a voice bot that can answer client questions and things like that. And he said, amazing, but we can't build it. I said, why? He said, because you showed me that this bot accesses 4 different domains of data. And right now we don't have a way, the real agent that talks to the client have 4 different screens open, 4 different logins open in order to answer the specific question that what you showed me about was actually with multi-agent, was able to grab information for 4 different systems and create an answer. We can't do that because we don't have this data bus or data fabric or whatever you want to call it, data lake, that we can essentially just get a question and access all those different data assets through simple APIs. So I think the base, if we look at enabling a client, the first thing we want to see is that all the data is essentially accessible through APIs with governance, versioning, cataloging, etc. Sort of a data lake or a data fabric, and then we can build AI on top of it.
Would you say that most companies in general, and I would assume perhaps for security or the way they're set up as they grow, their information is siloed and their data is siloed? And is that one of the biggest issues as a company enters this whole trying to incorporate AI into their operations?
Yeah, so some of those challenges, by the way, are not just technological, they're also political. Because you may have different departments hosting different data assets, and they don't want to let other departments access the data they own. So part of the things that we see, in order to get successful adoption, you need the sponsorship of the top executive, from the CEO down, to be able essentially to break those political and organizational boundaries. And essentially, again, put all the data with the safety and precautions, put all data into a system where it's accessible.
Now, many companies are looking into incorporating generative AI. Now, what separates a company that is succeeding in that incorporation from one that is just dabbling in it and not using it to its full potential?
So I think you can divide it to a few attributes. One of the organizational political aspect, we talked about it, is endorsement from the executive downwards, thinking of it as a strategic thing, not a tactical thing. Because you can actually transform your company using AI And we've seen it with some clients that they essentially become way more efficient. They change the way they interact with clients, etc. So the first thing is getting it as a strategical effort endorsed by executives and so on. I think the second thing is knowing what to focus on and what not. Some of the technology is not 100% mature, some of it is good for certain things and not other. And you need to find which use cases are really going to generate that business value. Not just because everyone else is doing it, but because this actually ties into your business. And so this is all, again, the second level. The third is not thinking of it as a one-off, let's build something sexy, etc. But think of it building a platform, a framework where you can build multiple use cases on that platform. Because there may be different applications and interact with the same data. Maybe one application generates data, extracts information from the data. The other one uses a chat to communicate with that data. Maybe a third application summarizes the information from the chat and sends an email with follow-up and so on. So you need to think of it holistically, not of building a use case, but of building a platform. And that platform, again, has all the production level attributes of being able to deploy to production, be cost effective, address the security challenges, address the hallucinations or inaccuracy challenges of AI and so on.
You certainly hit the nail on the head when you're saying that, the general consensus is everyone is doing it, so should we. And yeah, and then the thought that goes behind it becomes incredibly important. Now, so you talked about hallucinations there. How can companies looking to harness generative AI mitigate those data risks and those risks of hallucinations?
So a lot of the work that we're doing is essentially in those areas. For example, we build custom models that are more targeting specific applications, because very large models have too much information.
Right.
So it can actually easily hallucinate, But if you build a model, then you tune it with specific data. It will provide more accurate answers. We've done things like a feedback loop of measuring if it's inaccurate and fixing it on the fly. Also comparing it with real world grounded truth. Like you have documents with established truth and you compare the answers with that. So there are many different techniques that we're using. And these are, again, some of the hard challenges that when someone is building a prototype or a demo that he wants to show the executives, oh, cool, we have AI, they overlook those challenges. And think about it, if they build a bot, some answers are correct, some are incorrect. When they demo, they don't show the incorrect answers.
Right.
They know the scenarios that generate the good answers, and they get the project approved, and then they're trying to productize it and understand that the difference between 60% accuracy and 90-something% accuracy is huge engineering-wise. It's not like 2x, it's like 10x more engineering to get it to really produce right results.
So in that case, then, given that, and you talk about people putting out a project, it's the accuracy is a certain level, but we only see the success rate instead of what the pitfalls could be. What are some of the biggest or most common AI scaling challenges that companies are finding?
So, for example, one scaling challenge is that if I want to build multiple use cases, I need more engineering. So one of the ways to do that is, again, creating the same platform, creating the same patterns and components that are used across the different applications that you're building, because engineers tend to reinvent the wheel, So you get 40 engineers to build different things, they'll just duplicate everything. But instead you can say, those are common patterns, let's build them once, and then just the application on top will change. Other aspects, for example, cost aspects. If you're building things very inefficiently, you query the LLM all the time, or you're using very large models that are very expensive and slow, it's inefficient. Sometimes it's more engineering work. You build a smaller model, which is more tuned to your needs. It will be 10x cheaper, 10x faster. So there are different aspects that you need to think about when you're productizing and scaling or to production.
What is the one AI myth that you wish would go away?
I think everyone looks at multi-agent as a solution for all problems. I think it comes with a lot of issues. For example, you have a multi-agent or a bunch of multi-agents that talk to each other. How do you really trust the answer and making sure it provided the right answer? How do you address security challenges across those different agents? Because some agents are interfacing with other solutions. So there's still a lot of work to make sure that this multi-agent, self, resolving systems are robust and resilient enough. We're actually joking about those things can communicate between each other and just leave us out of the picture at a certain point in time. But so we need a way to govern those. We need a way to verify that what they generate is the right answer and not just let them loose like in a jungle.
Would you say AI is the greatest industrial game changer, as many people say it is? And if so, what industry do you think will be moving fastest forward with AI?
So I think every 10 years you have something that changes the world. We had the internet revolution. People didn't have internet, and now you can't think of your life without the internet. Then we have the mobile revolution. People didn't, use phones. Now everyone is managing their life through phones, and now phones with AI. And I think AI is this decade's sort of revolution, but it's probably more fundamental, and it's moving in exponential growth. You see what we had 2 years ago, what we have now in AI is like totally different, and probably 2 years from now, things will be even different. You want chat, you just talk to something that will do anything for you. So I think this is the biggest innovation.
Yeah, so which industry do you think will be benefiting most from AI, or we can see the fastest development through AI?
I don't know if it's specifically about industry. I think it's about sometimes use cases. What we see is the customer interaction is the biggest momentum. How you interact with various companies, whether it's your phone company, your bank, and so on. So this is the most common use case of introducing AI in the interface between the clients and sort of the organization or data. Or I think this is the biggest thing. But we can also see a lot of interesting application in the areas of video processing, and we've seen them also in the show. For example, I've seen a nice demo of a video looking at pictures of people in a factory, and they're saying this one is safe. He has a helmet, he has a jacket, etc. This guy isn't. So there are video analytics with AI use cases for industrial systems, for safety or other things, for security reasons. So these are the main areas, I believe.
And so you touched on it briefly, but to round up our conversation, one of the things you do talk about is building trust in AI. So can you give us a sense of how businesses can overcome the trust issues that they're facing with AI?
So I think what we usually see is when people build cross-life, they build very inefficient. We also, because for example, if I want to prove a concept, I won't do a lot of engineering. I want to just get the concept up. I don't care about cost. I'm making 10 calls a day just to show that my bot is working. I don't need to think about cost. But when you're trying to serve 1 million clients, let's assume you're a bank, hitting your system on a minute-by-minute basis, then the cost can go up to the root. And then you need to start thinking about efficiency of, for example, as I mentioned, not use the largest model because it's very convenient. Use just the right model with some fine-tuning. Maybe, for example, pre-prepare the data. I gave another example of, for example, there's a document you upload, you want to ask questions about the document. So every time you ask the question, you will go through the entire document and look for the information. But sometimes you can take the document, pre-process it, generate metadata from that document, which will be much smaller, and then query the metadata. You get two things. One, it's way faster, it's way cheaper, but also it's much more accurate because the question doesn't look, like a loosely coupled document and searches for some information. It looks into a database. The LLM essentially takes the question, breaks it into API calls, goes to the data, gets an answer. The answer is verified. It is not just something that was reinvented. And then you get all those things at once. Less hallucination, better cost, better performance.
Great. Thank you so much, Yaron Haviv. What a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you
Welcome. Thank you.
very much for being on Taiwan Plus.